So when I'm playing these riffs from Eye of the Beholder by Metallica, um, there's probably one of three different areas that I'm focusing on. So I'll talk about three different general areas and then leave it to you to iron out the specifics from there. So the first area is kind of general aerobic technique study with your plucking hand, using a variety of fingerings and combinations and things to look for there. The second area is trying to cultivate a very strong, like a go-to scale technique for you, so that when you have to play a scale, you know what technique you're going to use, and that feels strong and secure. So working on that technique. The third area is really feeling out the tempo of this song and kind of what that means. It's the funnest part of all these things, and if the first two areas are working, then I can really work in area number three, which is feeling out the tempo. It's kind of putting everything together, and how important that is. Okay, so first area, general aerobic study for this riff. So I would always recommend playing this with a metronome. Okay, that's what I did in the beginning of the video. And I would only say to not do that if you're actively going to try and keep the tempo as strong as you can, like without the metronome, if that makes sense. In a riff like this, there's no reason to not study it, just absolutely rhythmically, and to really enjoy doing that. So I'd always advise a metronome. I think the click is about 120. That's what I tapped out when I was listening to the track, so somewhere around there. If you want to study a riff like this with different right hand combinations, okay, first thing I might do is simplify it a little bit. So instead of going across the strings, I'm just going to keep it on one string. Or you could even play that high E on the 6th string if you wanted to keep it. And then a lot of the first riff is all on the 6th string anyway. And I didn't include like the second part that's going on. You can do that if you want, but I might actually look at that later in another video. I wanted to keep it kind of clean and precise in terms of technical study instead of trying to reproduce the song as exact as I could, which on one guitar is not going to happen anyway. But so first, simplify the riff, and then work a multitude of plucking hand fingerings. Okay, this is something I talk about a lot in these videos. Any 2-finger combination I would work. I-M, I-A, M-A, I, pinky, or any of those in pinky, P in any of those, P-I, P-M, B-A, what have you. And this is P, P-A. As a daily warm-up, you could just kind of go between them. Okay, P-M, they sound different. Okay, how about IA? Okay, how about MA? You can think free stroke or rest stroke, whatever you like. And for me, as you could hear, my MA combination is probably the worst in my hand, if we're not counting pinky. So it's good to play something like this, once or twice every time you practice, every time you play the guitar, to get some repetition and some work into a combination that's not very strong in your hand. And even though the tempo is not right where I wish it was, it's a little bit slow. What I am able to copy is kind of the mood of the riff and the articulation, which I think helps your technique. If you can't do a technique well, you need control in that technique. Working on things to refine your control will surely make the technique more reliable, right? So controlling these articulations I think is really good, okay? And this part of the riff for me is just is really difficult for me to play. So I spend some time on that frequently, no matter the fingering. And it's so good for the alternation and the control, the articulation. So you could really just have fun playing this riff and work a few different fingerings, okay, and come up with your own ideas. If you want to look at a 3-finger or 4-finger pattern, a riff like this is great because every time you restart the riff, you will be on a different finger in the pattern, so the accents change, and you're not always putting the accent on the same finger. Okay, for instance, let's do AMI pattern. Okay. And if you already study AMI work, okay, you're already doing work to make them even, to make them all strong, probably make your A finger stronger. That's what I need. So all of these concepts when playing a riff like this are the same, okay? Evenness, control between the fingers, and strong sound. Really, you want it to sound like a 2-finger pattern, okay? But you're using 3 fingers. So if we start on A, we do A, M, I, A, M, I, A, M, I, A, M, I, A. Now the riff starts over for the next cycle, but this time we're starting on M. M, I, A, M, I, A, M, I, A, M, I, A, M. Now we're starting on I. Okay, if that makes sense. So if you wanted to work A, M, I, you could just cycle through this riff. And practice using all 3 of your fingers equally. Okay, and you can do it on any string, of course. Moving across the guitar. If you want to do like a guitar tremolo pattern, that's P-A-M-I. This is also good for that. Because every time you play the next part of the riff, you're starting on a different finger. P-A-M-I, 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 P. Now A. A-M-I-P, 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 A-M-P-A-M, like that, okay? That one works nice and easy in a group of 4, so that would be fun to practice. So any of those are great. That's a general aerobic plucking hand work. And because, I want to say because if you love this riff, you'll be more apt to play it better. But I don't think that's actually true. It sounds good. I don't think it's also actually true that a more basic, drier exercise, may not be as productive for you. I think the difference is your motivation, because, Metallica plays this riff so well, so precise, that you know exactly how it should go. So you'll be motivated to shape your technique more than if you had something that was less specific. I think the key is being specific in your viewpoint, okay? And, you do love the riff. That is why you might play it more specifically. But it's not the love of the riff alone. It's the The goal is to want to play it a certain way, which helps your technique. Maybe. Maybe. I hope. So the next aspect is cultivating a strong scale technique that you can use when playing scales in pieces. And really having that go-to number one scale technique for your hand. For me, it's nothing revolutionary. It's just I am rest stroke. That's my strongest scale technique. If I have to play a scale, that's the technique that I use to play scales most of the time. So this is a technique I used in the beginning of the video to introduce these riffs because I wanted it to sound the best it could. In working your strongest technique for a riff like this, I think here are some advantages that you can draw upon for shaping this particular scale technique. One is you're not going to be moving across the strings. Okay, if you notice when you play any type of scale, you're going to be moving across the strings a lot. Okay, not for a riff like this. Okay, you're going to stay in one place, so you can relax in terms of feeling like you're going to have to move. So how can you use that? You can use that to say, my hand's going to be in one place, so it needs to feel stationary and comfortable, but as strong as it can be. So you can find this nice position really with your whole body. Yeah, wrists and fingers and all that, but if you can find the position stronger in your whole body, this will take care of itself, I think, more than we think it will. We think we have to just maneuver every little thing. When, if you just find the natural flow kind of from your neck and spine through your shoulder on down, takes care of a lot of stuff that I don't think you'd be able to find otherwise. So work on finding this position. For me, I've got to sit up straight, okay? It's very important. My shoulders are back. My right shoulder's totally out like this. This is one of the very first things I was told not to do when I began studying classical guitar. You're not supposed to play like that. You're supposed to play like this, okay? It took me a long time to realize there's just some power that I can draw here that doesn't come from anywhere else, at least that I've found so far. And there are plenty of people who play like this too, right? And it's not pulling back too much, and it's not tensing up towards my neck either. It's just, it feels like it's in just right amount of like leverage, where this is happening just a little bit. Just a little bit, okay? Now you may employ these same principles, you may not. You may have a relaxed shoulder and all that stuff, and that might work very well. But the concept is the same, where you can sit with this riff and say, how can I keep that strong but stationary, and just love feeling that way, okay? Even if everything's working as well as you think it should, you just enjoy spending time there, okay? This is how it feels to play the guitar. Comfortable, strong, as easy as it can be. And that puts you in the position to make the sound that you want, which is the next area I think is really important. I know when you hear this sound, you hear me play Eye of the Beholder, it doesn't sound big, it sounds tiny, okay? Because you're used to hearing the recording. But still, the sound is a very deliberate choice. For what I'm working with here, I want it to be loud, I want it to be slightly aggressive, I want it to be pointed and pretty bright, but also thick enough. You know, not bright and thin. Okay, bright and thick. Not too, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but not too much of this. Not too ooshy. That's not pointed enough for me when playing this riff, okay? So for me, it's right about here. So those short notes can be as articulated as they can, okay? They don't turn into something that's not very audible. Okay, so I want to move my shoulder, move my arm, and so that sound comes very easily. Okay, everything else in the hand, I rest my thumb here like this. It helps me get my fingers into position. So you're working all this so it can be on demand and on call when you need it, and then when you need to play a scale, hopefully you've got a stronger foundation from which to work. Okay, and this kind of segues into my next point. Okay, which is going to be about feeling out the tempo. And the genius of this song, I, the Beholder, is in Metallica's tempo choice. It's the way I feel about a lot of their music. They could play this riff like 10 times faster if they wanted to. But they did that on other songs. They did that on Dyer's Eve, and they did that on Blackened, and they had very up-tempo songs. This song was a completely different feel. It's almost slow in feel. I mean, it's slower moving, and the groove that they create is just second to none in terms of choosing a tempo. They do the same things on other songs like Sad But True. They employ something similar, where it's like a slower tempo choice that really just makes the whole song just sink in and feel so important. So when you're studying this riff, I would always study it with a metronome because I'm always trying to get as in touch with the tempo as I can. When you play a note, you don't just play it on time. You hit the nail right on the head with a hammer, like strong and deliberate and right there. And it doesn't matter if you play 10 notes in a row. Every note you want to be like that. And the closer you can get to that goal, then I think the better your technique. So this piece, the tempo choice, is just fantastic for practicing your scales, because the tempo is slow enough so where you can do it, but you're working on power and rhythm and playing in the groove, and you're really cultivating those things, because when you play faster, all of that needs to be the same. Especially this one. I've done a lot of work just sitting there and playing that riff with a metronome like that. Feeling out the tempo in this particular song, okay, again, that's 120 BPMs. That's what that's set at. I think it'd be so good for your technique. And it's like 20 times more beneficial than if you sat there without the metronome, you knew the riff, and you kind of played it like... It's just like, that's almost no beneficial study of your technique, okay? This is going back and forth. That's all that's happening. There's no control, there's no timing, there's no sound choice, there's no structure, there's no rhythm, okay? There's no life. It's like sloppy, undefined, life. You want a defined picture and a defined goal that you're going for. And how well you play, to me, only means how well you can achieve that goal. That's it. It will change from day to day. It will change as you play guitar throughout the years. That's all. There's no good or bad or better or worse, really. It's just how well did you achieve that picture that you're going for. But practice syncing to the tempo. If you have to slow it down, then I applaud you. I do too. But don't change any of these concepts. So I slowed it down to 90. nothing really changed except the tempo, right? But being in tune with the tempo didn't change, the articulations didn't change, and that's why if you're going to use a strong fingering or a weaker fingering, try and keep those points the same, and it will do a lot for your technique. So it's always important, I think, when you're studying, a Metallica song on fingerstyle guitar. Maintaining the tempo is always important, unless you're going to go for something completely different. This song, Eye of the Beholder, is particularly important to me because you can fight the urge to go faster, and you can work on maintaining that very comfortable speed, and you'll make the song sound better. Okay, if you come out and you try and play it faster, it turns into a different song. Okay, so you'll make it sound better if you can get into the groove.